All right, let's do a quick introduction. Who you are, who you're with. Can we turn the lights off there for the screen? There we go. All right, start down there. My colleague Josh, who's the not as beautiful other half that was called away, but we're going to have you up there representing anyway.
I think it's beautiful, Josh.
Thank you. Josh Burkhalter, Burkhalter Realty Group. My wife and I work together. We've been pretty listing heavy this year, so I'm also interested to see what everybody else has to say too.
Bob Wolf team, got a team of 9 and been here for 9 years.
Awesome.
Lindsey Haas, new to Keller Williams, and joined them in Florida last year and moved over here in Atlanta in March. And it's my husband and I. So we used to have a team. We decided not to have a team anymore, so we went back to the OGs. Very simple. I was watering my plants yesterday, like 4:30. Wow, nobody needs me. This is really great.
Michael Bradford, been with Keller Williams 7 years, licensed since '98. Went through all of that back in the day. Single team, single lady. Okay.
My name is Xochilt Villalobos, but everyone knows me as So. I'm the lead buyer's agent for EF2. I've been licensed 5 years now.
Wow.
Meagen Farrow, single agent. I've been in real estate. It'll be 3 years in August.
Wow. Okay. So we've got a wide variety there. What we want to just find out what you're seeing right now, and it doesn't have to go down the line. It's just jump in there, sort of a panel discussion. What are you seeing right now? As we're talking more now, Zoe has the appropriate book that we should all be running to go get a hold of the shift. We're seeing a bit of a shift, a legitimate shift. We've talked about a shift for 3 years, but we're really seeing some changes. So what are some of the factors, that you're seeing right now? Don't be bashful.
I've been seeing opportunity for my buyers. I mainly work buyers. And now that we see the market correcting, I definitely see that there is more opportunity for those buyers that didn't have a chance like 2 months ago.
I think happy clients are ones that have their expectations set before things happen. I'm really big on doing that. However, the market shifted right when I listed $1 million one at East Cobb, and the seller called me, an older couple, and like, what's going on? You're going to be okay. It's only been 8 days. And I was like, oh, I didn't have to talk with them. And I kind of kicked myself for that. But I'm finding that I have to tell my sellers, I just want to let you know, if we don't have an offer in 7 to 10 days, buyers are seeing that as 30 to 60 days in their eyes. And so, if we've been on the market for, and I've had several listings like this recently, we've been on the market for more than 7 days, they're offering $10,000 to $20,000 below the list price. We are countering and they're accepting, but they're seeing us as a little bit of vulnerable.
So we're seeing some counters come back and the buyers walking away. So the buyers are, getting educated. And it's all about us educating our clients. It's like Lindsey saying, we've got to tell our sellers, which we're listed heavy, what's going on. And, we're seeing more listings come on the market right now.
Yeah, we've seen the same thing too. We've been preparing our last couple of listings for a little bit longer. It hasn't really happened, so it makes us look great when they go faster. But we've been trying to set that expectation up front too, that things are slowing down. Interest rates are up, buyer pool's smaller. So luckily we haven't had to deal with it too much yet, but I'm feeling that the next couple that we have are going to be a little bit longer.
My name's Bob.
Yeah, go ahead.
What's making them walk away?
Just counter back and they say, no, we're just dug in. That's
Choice, man. And we all knew we had to know it was coming because, when it's that hot of a market for buyers, eventually they're going to get buyer fatigue. And I was on a team with the buyers agent last year, and I saw that firsthand. That buyers get fatigued. They've been out there and they've looked at 30 houses. They made 15 offers and they got 0 house. So now that you're seeing more inventory coming on, and I saw that this weekend, as a matter of fact, with one of my clients. What I had to go back to her and remind her of is, you need to reach out to your lender. The pre-approval you got was from January. You need to see where you can afford now, because you may have some sticker shock when it comes to looking at your interest rates. But all that means is we have to adjust what we're looking for. You just need to make sure that this is, that you can afford it. And I'm gonna R&D for a minute. I think I saw it on Ursula. It says, you marry the house, but you date the rate. Make a commitment to the house, and as you move forward, as we talked about, when the interest rates come back down, you dump that one and go get it.
So think about it, great dating advice, thank you.
For those of us who have not been in the dating pool for a long time, date the rate.
Yes, sir.
Enunciate, yes.
So think about it, buyers were bringing 10, 20, 30,000 above at the closing, right? They would be more than happy to keep that money in their pocket, pay a little higher rate on the thing. So that's kind of where we're going.
That's a great point. Yeah. Yeah. You go and pay, if you'd have told me 10 years ago, somebody would willingly pay $375 or $350 now, I'd say, great, but you're absolutely right. You go to pay 25,000. What's a percent higher, 1.5% higher rate?
And that's where we're putting a positive spin on it. We're educating our buyers and ourselves. So that's what happens. I mean, we're the resource for all these people.
I think under 400,000 too, we really have this expectation before they go out and look at houses and make offers that they're gonna have to put some money into the house too. So they gotta be open-minded to that and budget for it and expect to have to fix some things. And seller may do some repairs, but they're not gonna do as much as they've done in years past. But, trying to set their expectation, like, you're gonna have to put some TLC into this, whatever house you buy, if they're buying under 400,000.
So then under I'm just sort of repeating that 400,000 number, you probably have to do something to the house. It's not gonna be, Martha Stewart perfect, or whatever style.
I think if they had an expectation from the minute they get in the car, they're gonna be much happier.
Yeah.
I also think that if you haven't really negotiated a contract in the last 18 months or 24 months, I'd say go ahead and dust off those hats. I'm like a blood in the water type of agent. And once we get that contract accepted, I'm no longer afraid to negotiate repair, to negotiate, I feel that the agents that really lean into this are going to do just fine. And, I don't know, this is exciting for me. I like negotiating. And, previously it was just like, just give us the house. We'll give you our firstborn child. I've offered babysitting services on contracts. Like there's this level of desperation. What? Yeah.
Tell that story.
3 contracts that I won in the last 18 months or so. And I'm not saying that this is what did it, but it made me stand out because I thought it was so creative and the special stipulations. I think it was selling agent agrees to pay for 1 night of babysitting for sellers so that they can go celebrate their new binding contract.
Okay, that made more sense. I thought you were babysitting.
I feel like someone spit off the duplicate that I did and see previous. Nobody wants to see my mug salad.
And they may not, they don't know me, but I prefer,
And
But
Jason
still-
Wilson will babysit.
Yeah,
maybe
see, right.
maybe the
Don't put that in
value
your
of
contract.
that is maybe only $100. I don't know what the going rate for babysitters is,
I
but
love the creativity.
they love the creativity. I've gotten so much feedback from listing agents and be like, oh, that's so cute. Like they don't even think about the fact that it's only $100. It's but they like, and it makes us stand out. And then, only 1 out of the 3 actually was like, they even was like, yeah, we're going to go out this night and, send us some things. At any rate, but going back to negotiating your contracts for your buyers, now is the time. We're seeing longer days on market. Sellers are panicking because I think most agents are not having that conversation with them on the front end that we're experiencing a change. And I see that as an opportunity as a buyer's agent. So, and I just negotiated concessions on my contract that we're closing tomorrow. And it was like, it got, the other agent wasn't ready for it, and I'm just and he's like, we were even outside of that period. And I was like, you're really going to want to talk to them about giving us concessions on this. And he goes, well, that they're not obligated to. I said, yeah, but do you really want to go back to market knowing that your debt has foundation issues? You have to tell everybody. Plus, we're in a shift, hitting back the market. I was like, you and I both know that our offer is gonna be the best one you're gonna get. And we really just need to work together to get this closed. And we closed tomorrow. Wouldn't you agree? You know? And it's all right.
So, I am seeing more due diligence things,
Right.
longer due diligence times on it. What are you guys seeing? Like, how many days? What kind of concessions are you guys seeing? All that kind of stuff.
Well, in our listings, we have seen people recently just do more with due diligence, and I don't know if it's because they think they have more time or if they're just knowing that everybody's packed up when it comes to inspections and appraisals and all that. So I have seen a little bit of a push on the last two that we've had go under contract recently. But again, I don't know if it's because they think they have more time or if their agent's just like, hey, it's hard to find an inspector, it's hard to find appraisal, so we do need more time. One thing that I'll kind of piggyback off of what Meagen's talking about is it's not always the money, it's the communication. And obviously, if we could all work with another KW co-op agent on every deal, it would be great. But there are other fantastic agents out there too. Communicating with everybody across the board, it makes such a big difference when you get a phone call on a listing and somebody says, hey, I've got so-and-so. And then as soon as the agent gets off the phone, their lender calls you and says, hey, this person's a rock star. They've got X, Y, and Z in order, and their numbers are great. So it's not anything,
Right.
it's not anything out of the ordinary. It's just going a little bit further. And even when you're talking to your buyers initially, it's like y'all said, so easy to get fatigue in the market now because inventory's low and you're making a ton of offers. You have to be super purposeful on digging down to what they want. And then if they're like, well, you know, we didn't really like this style, but I think we're going to take a look at it. You have to say no, because if you know that they aren't going to like it and it's wasting your time and their time, you're just contributing to that fatigue if you're just being a yes man. So don't be afraid to say, well, you know, on your checklist of must-haves, this wasn't on there. And this was what you told me that you didn't like. Most of the time, they're going to go, oh, yeah, that's right. I really don't like split level homes. Let's take that one off the list. So you have to stick to your guns. And like she said, don't be afraid to call people, even if it's the other agent or your client, say, hey, this is not what you told me you wanted. So,
Over there on the far side of the
Okay,
room.
so I want to ask the script master. He knows who I'm talking to. And it was not you, Josh. I love you. So Bob.
Yeah.
Will you script? Give us your script around now sellers before we're having to prepare them that they're most likely not going to be able to write a contingency offer, like on a seller who's going to also be a buyer, right? So tell me what that looks like. How are you explaining the market to your seller who is also a buyer right now? How are you proposing their options?
So what we're doing is we're basically saying we can put your house under contract, you know, you go to the market and we will not let you homeless. We will make sure you have another home to go to. I mean, it's all about communication, like you're saying, with other agents. I'm convincing, or not convincing, asking myself to go ahead and pull that trigger so that we can get ahead of the market. And if we get an offer, we'll work out the contingency part. And if you don't find something, we'll do an extension on your closing, you know, and we've done that all the time.
Or you're doing, so are you writing a stip in the contract that says the seller has the right to extend the closing date?
Yeah, we are.
Okay. So that's,
Yeah,
that's good.
you know, because if a buyer wants their house, seller's house, they will wait for it.
Yeah.
You know, that's not an issue.
We've done a few where we just closed them as quick as we could and did a rent back for 2 months.
Right.
And we're doing like temporary occupancy with no rent back, so.
Right, for 2 months. But that's, we're gonna see that start to shift now
Yeah,
that,
you are.
when this market is shifting, buyers are not gonna be agreeable to a 2-month rent back.
Exactly.
Right, so we have to go in and prepare these sellers for a new option, which means we go back to the old days where sellers have to maybe consider a contingency contract.
Correct.
I'm still seeing like seasoned agents though, that are doing a good amount of business, are still writing very strong offers. I just did a townhouse in East Cobb that 0 due diligence, 8 days for appraisal, and that was it. No refinancing contingency. That just happened last week and it's been on the market for like 8 days. So, I mean,
Mr. Jason.
the newer agents are sending 21-day financing appraisal. And I'm like, have you like gone into your office and talked to your broker? Because I haven't accepted anything like 21 days and probably over 2 years.
2 years, yeah, for sure.
Jason,
So my question for you guys is, are you seeing offers continue on the sale of property that are not yet sold? Was that started?
Not yet. I think it's
Well,
on its way though.
Yeah, I just made an offer 2 days ago. I have a buyer and seller, they need to sell before they bought, but we had been approved with Homeward. So we made the Homeward offer to them. They accepted it. We started working through some of the details. My client's parents went over and looked at the house and shot it down.
Oh, man.
So we pulled back on that. The listing agent, yeah, the listing agent said, hey, well, listen, if it's important to them, we will consider their offer with the contingency to sell, if that would make it more attractive for them to move forward with their offer.
More attractive to their parents.
Their parents and the buyers,
Right.
to go back to their original lender and use the contingencies. So I see that shifting right away, yesterday, day
Yeah,
before
because,
yesterday.
I mean, because you talk about a stopped up pipeline, how many people do you guys, have you talked to that would have sold if they had somewhere to go?
At
Right?
least five in
And
my
there's some that
pipeline.
aren't comfortable with the nuances of a Homeward offer or with a written offer or with any of that stuff. And so what it feels like is we're gonna get this flood of availability if those start getting accepted, which is good in some respects and so contributes to softening prices.
But it makes for a balanced market.
Yeah.
You know, we all
Agreed.
complain about having here and here.
Yep.
You know, and that 4, 5, 6 month inventory sounds kind of attractive to a buyer's agent.
So we need to shift the seller's
Expectations.
expectations, so we've got to bring those conversations back into our listing presentations.
You should have probably never left our conversations, you know, but we talk and say, in today's market, this is what we're seeing. This is not a normal market, you know, a normal market is that this house would sit on the market for 30, 60 days before we got an acceptable offer.
what we've been in has been a completely abnormal
Right.
market. And now we're actually going back, as you would say, to our old.
So a good balanced market.
It's a balance.
A sustainable,
Unpredictable.
predictable.
Yeah, unsustainable. Bruce just ran the numbers for our team, and he's saying most of the things that we're seeing in Cherokee County is gonna be around the 40-day period, instead of like 4 hours and 4 days, you know, or something like that. The only reason you couldn't get the house under contract in 4 days, you had too long of a spreadsheet trying to figure out who had the best 6 deals.
Yeah, that 4 day was not really 4 days, it was 4 hours.
It was super quick.
You know, although we're educating our sellers what's going on, they might have to do some painful losing some contracts before they realize what's going on. So
Right.
just be prepared for
I
that.
need to paint that front door.
Do you remember, and maybe, I mean,
Who
I
would
don't
have
know.
thought?
Yeah.
That's so interesting that you say it, you worded it like that, because I remember I had a few buyers that had to lose one before they got with the program, right? Did you guys have buyers that were like, we're not waiving anything, we're not offering over
And
appraisal, and you're
still said,
like,
I'm stripping away.
and you're like, okay, well, let's go ahead and write this offer, and then immediately shut down. Next offer, they're like, okay, we're here to play ball, and now we're just having those conversations with the sellers. And I think that what's really important is that hopefully we all learned something over the last 2 years. We've honed in on our skills. We've learned some new tricks. Our buyers have gained time now, right? They're gaining time and all the new tricks that we have learned over the last 2 years. So I look at it as a really great time for us to really shine for our buyers and finally get them into homes where they're not having to give up their firstborn child.
So what do you all think buyers are gonna start saying now?
Interest rates are high now.
I'm gonna wait for the interest rates to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
They keep using the word crash, and every time I hear that, I'm like, look, just
Not a
calm down, don't believe everything you read on Facebook.
Well,
Crash.
I always ask
Question
them, what makes you believe it's gonna
That
crash?
was,
And they're like, "Look,
What it is
Because I saw it
for,
give
right?
me 3 reasons why I think it's gonna crash.
But that also is a
They
great
can't answer.
motivator, right? I mean, in your lead gen time, when you ask, somebody goes, well, why did you say that? And then you find out what their motivation is. When you get the motivation, it really doesn't matter. It's just a, you know, instead of building the puzzle this way, we build it this way, right? It's,
So what is your message when they say, I'm gonna wait for the interest rates to go down?
I say the people that said that they were gonna wait till this year to buy are kicking themselves.
Yeah.
I usually tell them, I work with, foreign foreign clients, so I usually tell them, well, 6% is really good. I have 2 buyers right now that are pre-qualified for like 7.5% and like 8%. And that's, you know, and that's true. So
I ask them, how do you feel about 100% interest? And they say, what does that mean? I say, well, you're paying somebody's mortgage, but it ain't yours.
Right.
Well, in the case of my client yesterday, or 2 days ago, the reason they pulled back on it is because the house didn't check every single box and it was at the top of their price point. Had it had everything that I was really looking for, this house was a compromise for us. Had it had everything and had that at the top of the price, we would have moved forward. So I think people are gonna look for more what they're looking for.
People would move forward if the seller would have gone down.
I don't think so.
So how about telling them
Don't
there's
think that
options
was
out
a
there?
problem.
And at that point, turn it over to your lender. Figure out the options for you. That's not a
yeah, is
lender.
it really right, or is it your payment is supposed to
Right.
support it?
Right.
And I mean, their motivation for moving. You guys, we need to make sure that we are asking the right questions. And when people allow fear to take over their decision making, it's our job to engage their thinking brain and remind them why they need to move in the first place. And if that why is not big enough, then you've saved both of yourselves time and money. And you know, it may very well be that it is not the right time for them because their why is just not big enough. And I don't know about you, I'm done chasing clients, right? So make sure that you're asking really good questions to hone in on why they're making the move in the first place. And that's why you need to have, I call it strategy sessions, or buyer consultations. You need to have those buyer consultations up front so you can set expectations.
I got one last thing too, because we're talking about these buyer pools too. Just think about how many buyers were kind of squeezed out of the market because I got enough for my down payment, but I don't have enough for closing costs. And now there's a little bit of shift. I mean, just $3,000, $5,000 for closing costs. You got a whole other handful of buyers ready to go. That, you know, and if you look at the difference in interest rate between, you know, where it was in the 3s and the 6s versus closing costs, it's still like a capture time of 5 years. So it all makes sense if we can get it. It also
That's a
helps.
good point, because we're not only talking to people now, these people are gonna be a client 3, 5, 10 years down the road. I just listed a house this year that we sold, I've been bought for 15 years, so it's not just now clients, it's long-term clients.
So you've been generating for the house for how long?
15 years.
I just like that to sink into everybody else.
Well, one thing to kind of piggyback off of what David was saying, with when we set up somebody on the search now, if they're like, hey, we're approved for 400, like their search doesn't start at 400. Like you can't, because they don't have any negotiating power. So we were starting people 10, 15, 25 below just to get them in the door, and then they can pay X amount over. Well, now they have more bargaining power and negotiation because they can go, oh, we can actually buy $400,000 house now and not have to come out of pocket every dime of closing costs. So it does give you a way to reach back out to your clients who are freaked out about interest rates to go, well, I know they're up, but we're seeing things last longer, so you may be able to afford more than what you thought, even when rates were a little bit lower.
One thing that I've seen a lot, especially if you do a lot of social media, is the naysayers are affecting the people who are curious about it. So I've had to start talking to people saying, look, do not get on there and listen to the naysayer. That's not going to happen. You know, because if you put a post right now, especially on like a local Facebook page or something, you'll get probably 20 naysayers to one. I'm kind of interested. And that's been kind of a hard thing to kind of fight on.
It's like getting financial advice from the Walmart grader.
Yeah.
So a good, so a good guy that you might want to quote and go look at his podcast last week was Clark Howard. Everybody knows Clark Howard, right? He's saying, you know, for a while there, I've told buyers, maybe you need to wait. He said last week, he said, now that things are shaking out like they are, this might be the best time for you to jump back in and look at that house, as long as you can really afford it.
That's what Doug Duncan says too.
Yeah.
Yes, so they listen to Clark Howard.
They do.
So
People love
Find
Clark.
that link or that, where he already said that and posted on the insider's page because
Dave Ramsey just said the same thing.
Yeah, that's what you guys,
I hear all three of those saying the
because
same.
that's who people listen to.
Yep.
Instead of us, they want to listen to somebody else.
That's exactly right.
I mean, this would be a perfect opportunity to rip off and duplicate. If someone could get those three people's faces and then do the same sound blur down below, even if it's in text.
Oh, contest. Who said this?
Who said this?
All three of them.
All three of them. Wow.
Who's our marketing person? That's it.
Okay, question. Okay, so this is from actually lenders. So when people say, I want to wait until the rates get down in the threes, when was the last time rates were in the threes? Was it 20 years ago, 30 years ago?
Yeah, I don't
How long
Ever.
ago? Ever?
I mean, honestly,
So that's,
Ever.
that would, is what,
That
so
was
you're
the
gonna wait another
anomaly.
25 years?
Yeah.
I mean, so we can have something to say is, oh, when
Right.
rates come down, well, when were they ever?
and even if you had a time machine.
Well, you know,
you
I'm the
probably-
eldest from the room, so I remember when our neighbor's house was at a 4% mortgage rate.
Right.
And I was like, that was like in the 1950s.
And
It wasn't the 50s.
when, and why were the rates in the 2s and the 3s? Pandemic. And when's the last time one of those happened?
Well,
Like,
apparently almost during the depression.
There you go.
You
Yeah.
know?
So-
In the 50s, it was, yeah.
But I think we all agree here that you're at 3% right, you're not gonna see 3%. Not in our lifetime. Yeah, now, if I was right 51% of the time, I'd be fishing on my boat right now, I wouldn't be here, but.
And I think it's gonna take
It's
a minute for
commonly
that to
said.
shift, right? You know, because the thing is, just like the federal government's addicted to printing money, we become addicted to low rates, right?
Yeah,
It's-
that's exactly what it is,
It's so, it takes a minute to detox from, from the
Yeah.
Vicodin that feels like, and get to a reality check of what interest rates are. And I think giving them the data, this is the thing I've been saying to everybody, is you gotta start doing math. For all you agents that hate math, if you only do 3% math, because you love 3% of whatever the purchase price is. Yeah. Closing costs. Poor David. He's like my sidekick. But you do the math and show the actual average interest rates, which you pointed out, there's a chart out there, you can Google it on Google and just find that, and it shows that how far below that's been and where we are sitting right now is actually really pretty good.
We'll get that
And
out.
what that's gonna look like long term, because waiting, how do you feel about 7? How do you feel about 8? How do you feel about
And
9?
also understand, especially if we're talking about people in the social media verse, there are just some people that will not listen.
Right.
And they
they're
are,
on TikTok.
they don't care if you send them a million graphs. I've been engaging with one, and that's another thing, you guys don't engage with them. I can't help myself because I have no self-control, but don't engage with them. But if you're like me and you're like, right? I could send him graphs, I could send him Clark Howard, I could send him all, and he's like, I don't care what you have to say, so on and so forth. I have been reading Never Split the Difference, Negotiate Like Your Life Depended on It. If you haven't read it, I read it when I first started real estate, and then no negotiating was happening for 2 years. And so now I'm dusting it off and I'm diving back into it. And my conversation with this person was escalating, and all of the people that they were seeing it, like, right, my people, my clients, and I was allowing him to instill fear in people that did business with me. And I absolutely could not let that happen. But if I just blocked him, everybody would know. And if I erased the messages, everybody would know. So instead, I started asking him questions. And I learned that he had a very bad experience with a real estate agent when he bought his house that ended up in litigation. I think that once I allowed him to explain himself on my platform, people that are reading it and looking at it, they're like, oh, so this is why he feels that way. I then acknowledged those feelings, and I told him that I understood why he might feel that way, and that I have always acted with integrity with my clients, and that is why my business is based on referrals. And the conversation was done. And I feel really good about having that now on my, so if you insist on engaging with people, just, I had to remind myself, because fear makes people like angry little dogs, and yelling back at them. It doesn't, you gotta pet.
So if
Right.
you're gonna
Telling
go-
them to calm down
You
does
gotta-
not calm
You
them
don't
down.
say calm down. That's like putting a Mentos in a Coke bottle. Like, they're just gonna explode, right? Also, if you haven't read Exactly What to Say for Real Estate Agents, guys, I have it on repeat on Audible in my car. I just listen to it because trying to, like, when you're in that difficult conversation with somebody, your heart starts racing and you're like, okay, what do I say next? So if you can just ingrain some of that NLP in you, it will help with it'll help with negotiating. It'll help with talking buyers down off of this crash ledge.
I think a lot of our role too is to keep our buyers and our sellers calm. And they depend on us for that, to keep them.
It is a truly stressful
It's
situation
emotional
anyway.
process too.
And it's very emotional, even if we're trying to tell them it's a business decision. It's still one of their biggest things going on, so we can't. as
And I
the
tell them,
leader-
5 and 6, when they start talking about the rates, I'm like, 5 and 6 is still a really good rate. I mean, 2 and 3% was just unsustainable long-term, and we're at a place now where it's gonna keep our economy alive. And this is what more of what normal is. And we have to also remember, even if rates go to 9% tomorrow, people still bought houses at 10 and 12%. And we have to remain calm about it, because if we're not calm about it, our clients are not gonna be calm about it.
I think it was a family reunion that said since 1972, the average rate is 7.81.
That's the graph.
50 years.
That's the graph. If you Google it, that's the graph I'm talking about.
But people don't remember.
Well, and I think that I've talked about this with several people, but especially when you're dealing with like first-time home buyers, they associate a downturn or recession in the economy with a housing market.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they
Yes.
think that
The whole
because
thing, yeah.
rates are going up, and
Recently.
they think that it's gonna crash again. So you have to educate them and let them know that that is not gonna happen again, because these buyers are super qualified, and back then they just weren't. So it's really about quelling the fear and educating them on how the economy moves in cycles. It just so happens that the last time we had a major downturn, it was due to real estate.
Yeah, and Jason's got a great pitch on, I've heard it before too, because these people, they were at home and they saw what's happened to their families and their parents or something. They really didn't know what was going on. All I know is that always homes are being foreclosed on, and there's a PVC orchard on that corner of the highway where a building is gonna go. So they just see that thing, you're right. And so they think, oh, well, anything economy bad is gonna automatically, so I don't know, Jason, I've heard, I don't know, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you said something one time.
Which one?
About experiencing what happened in 2008 and being fearful of it today as a first-time home buyer.
Yeah, it's a market difference. 2008 was what you said, it was built on the backs of inflated mortgages, 100% financing, 80-20, subprime loans, all the mirror get along, they called them the ninja loans. If you haven't seen it, the movie to go watch is the Big Short. I was a front row seat. That was literally my daily life. I'd call the bank and it'd be a different bank. I'd hang up because I thought it was a wrong number, call them back, and apparently they bought it. That kind of a failure. And this is different because there's so much cash in the marketplace now that you gotta watch the HELOCs.
Yeah.
Pulling the cash out again. But this market is so markedly different than what that was, as this is an inflationary market. And so I think Gary Keller is the guy to ask, right? He was working in that high interest rate market to see what that looks like during that era. And that's more of what we're gonna experience, which if they don't jack the rates to 14%, well, my prediction is we'll end up in a balanced, somewhat buyer market float, that will kind of do this a little bit with that. You're gonna get price softening, you'll get some price dropping, interest rates will come up. But what you're gonna experience is stuff technically in an inflationary market, things become more expensive, not cheaper, right? And so they're trying to quell that. And unless they hit 12 and 14%, was that Jimmy Carter that they did that?
The teams.
Yeah, and then that's what caused the plummet, is because they basically said, well, we got to right the ship. The only way we're going to do it is by rolling it. and it worked, but it sucked for the people for about a decade. So my hope is we're not going to roll the ship, but my new tagline is never put past the federal government to do some crazy stuff.
Well, that's why your choice in real estate.
Yeah. So this is subject, and I'm waking up and just saying, free money for everybody. You're all billionaires, and then we're screwed.
And that's why your choice of real estate agent is very important, right? You want someone who understands all those things, that where are you, even these little micro shifts, okay? Because, I would tell my clients, if you're selling and buying, you're buying and selling in the same market. So we're going to do the best we can on each one of those, which means you're going to sell up here and you're going to buy up here. We just want to make sure that we're in the right micro movement. And another probably thing that we will see that will come out of this is there will be a lot of real estate agents who will go market.
We saw that last
Will
time.
walk away or go do something else.
Because they're gonna have to work.
God, I love having Chris in here.
Right?
Hashtag lazy people.
Or uneducated.
I know.
Sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and you're trying to read.
There's an opportunity there to bring people in.
That's a good card for help, isn't it?
I've been in a market where I had a listing on the market for 12 months. So
You got to see
Right?
two
enjoy
Christmases.
that.
Merry Christmas again.
So they had it under contract probably 10 times and then falls out because the bank didn't want to make a decision. And that's the world we lived in. So if you haven't experienced any kind of this market, I would go take Bob out to lunch, take Lindsey out to lunch, buy him lunch, and pick their brain, because you're going to find out that this is the new normal, and this is really where skills-based stuff. The whole thing about discount commissions isn't going to become a thing anymore, because now it's going to be skill wins, right? You hire the guy who's free, and it happened to us. I had a guy call me and said, hey, can you come do a listing presentation? Full disclosure, we're hiring our friend who does this part-time, but we would like to know what you do, and I'll pay you to come. And I said, I'm not going to come for $500. It's going to cost you 2% for me to come and give you a presentation. He's like, I don't want to pay that. And I said, I figured as much. And they went with the friend, and they're like, well, they're not willing to come. They came back and said, can I refer this to you for a referral commission and you come do this? And we're like, sure. So we did and listed the property. That's what's happening, is where they're willing to go, I don't want to do this either. Just give me a referral and come back. You might find a lead source to be all the part-time agents that don't want to do business full-time. So just think differently about it. It's just a different opportunity.
Or think about adding to your team.
Exactly, or profit share.
Yeah.
Those are people you can educate and say, hey,
100%. There's an opportunity if you're okay with learning a new skill.
In
Eric,
2008,
stop
the
one
big
over
crash
here.
was.
So because we're trying to focus on buyers, right? If I could just have two of you. Say we have, we had a buyer and the house has been on the market for, say, a week and a half, and we're at median price of $430. What would you offer for that house right now? For contingencies, timing, earnest money? I mean, what would you offer going in if you know the house has been on the market a week and a half? And
It's not a local question.
no, exactly. So, but everybody's answer is
You
going
see
to be,
what
I
your
know.
listings look like.
I usually call that listing agent first. You'll be surprised. Right now, they're panicking. If the house has been listed for more than 7 weeks, they're panicking, and they'll tell you everything. So just call that in.
Just listen.
Just
listen.
She was referring to the other.
Yes.
So would you
Those
offer,
non-KW agents.
I guess, would you still be offering over list price? Would you go under list price? I mean, how much, I mean, are you asking for, any concessions? What are you doing?
So it comes down to my buyer, to be honest with you. If that is the house my buyer wants after I run the comps, then yes, I can't risk it. If the buyer says, well, I'm not really sure or whatever, then I may go a little bit under. I'll rather ask for closing costs than to go under, because we'll be contingent on appraisal regardless.
And how many days of due diligence?
5.
Okay.
If it has a septic, 7.
My last 3 listings that were on the market for 8 and 9 days, all 3 of them got offers $20,000 to $30,000 below list price.
Below.
Would you end up settling it?
We countered, we met halfway on all 3 of them.
I was gonna
and
say,
they
because
accepted.
I got my first one under contract for 10 grand under in a long time.
And the due diligence periods are still, 0 to 5 days, and no financing contingencies.
Yeah, that was just 3 in cash.
I'm telling agents, like, if you're coming in and asking for 10 or 20 days and financing contingency, that's telling me you're not doing your job. Like, you got to get them in through underwriting and know that they can get a loan. When they come in with a 0 financing contingency, I know that they know what they're doing. And that gives me a level of confidence. So do what you got to do to get those 0 financing contingencies.
But still doing appraisal?
Yes, 8 to 10 days, 8 to 12 days is what I'm saying.
8 to 12.
If I have a buyer with no financing contingency and an appraisal waiver and the property has been listed for 7 days, I use it as leverage. I don't give it up right away. I go send a clean offer, go under contract, and then negotiate during due diligence, and then give up my appraisal contingency or financing contingency.
I did have one that got 7 offers, and we were listed at 300,000, and they wanted 330, and so first-time home buyers went to their parents. I called the agent. I said, do they have parents who can give them money if it doesn't appraise? And they said, let me check. They called me back and said, yes, they'll give them the money. I added they were saying, okay, yeah, well, just go ahead and sign up. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to add the stipulation to the contract that you guys are going to do that. Fine. and they signed off on it. So now my seller and myself feel much more confident and willing to sign the offer. Also, I found out that the husband hadn't seen the house to ask those questions. And if you're a buyer's agent, make sure you're telling the agent that both of your buyers have seen the house, because it's going to give them some confidence. We wouldn't sign the contract until the husband got to the house. He got off work, looked at it, they called me and said, we're good to go. Then I sent the signed contract at that point.
And as the buyer's agent, if that's the house for my client, I will not disclose that the other spouse has not seen the property. I will not.
I
Or that
asked
the
unless you
parents
are.
might shoot it down.
Yeah.
Well, I asked questions. I said, have they both seen the house?
And if you're asked, you have an ethical obligation.
Of course, but if you're not
And I-
asking,
and I
nobody
asked.
truly asked.
I think
Well,
what
she
she
was
was
saying-
saying is to strengthen her offer, if both of them have seen the house, say
Say-
upfront, both of them have
Yeah.
seen it,
Yes.
then you.
Say
then
both
you-
Then what if the parents make
like
that
it's an
final
investor.
decision?
Do
You want to say that?
Doesn't matter, you gave her the strength that you needed by telling her that
But
both your
don't say they're
people saw it.
first time home buyers. Like I've had agents call me and say things. I'm like, did they just really say that? Because they just lost the contract because they told me that, you know, they hadn't seen the house yet. And I'm like, we were ready to take their offer. And so I had to call my seller back and say, well, you know, I know you're $5,000 apart on these two offers, but these people haven't seen the house. The agent just told me, nope, we want to go with the other one. And the agent lost out.
Wow.
But, you know, get your people in the house. We had someone drive from Tampa to here in one day just to see the house, and we would not sign the offer until they got there. And they saw the house, and then we sent the offer at like 10 o'clock at night.
And you won't sell because unless they've seen it, because if the husband says, oh, like, no, we're not buying this.
Right. And then when you have multiple offers, you know, there's too much risk involved.
Husband and wives always agree.
That's just at your house, Jason.
Yeah.
Never have I known.
My marriage vow is yes, you're right or wrong.
I'm gonna
And that was the
stop
best
that
thing
right
Kendall said all day.
I'm trying to decide which one of those I want to use for my ringtone. I want somebody to say it again, record it.
Oh, and also, if you are making an offer and they're using the money from the sale of their house, make sure your lender is on the same page as you, because the agents are going to call and ask those questions. And so, you know, I called and asked, is this contingent upon this buyer selling a house? And the lender's like, yes, it is. So, oh, good to know. You know, and
Yeah,
so
I've had the same
that's
thing
not,
happen.
I just had one get delayed by 2 weeks because of the home sale contingency, which I didn't uncover. And we said, we'll be willing to extend again, but you have to, you know, put more option money that's non-refundable. So the buyer forked out $4,000 more to keep the house.
Now, if it's on the pre-approval letter,
It wasn't.
okay, I'm just saying, because I had a buyer, same situation, she needed to close on her house out of state. They never asked up front, but it was in the pre-approval letter.
But if there's not a contingency,
But
there's
if
no
it's not a
protection
second
for it.
contingency,
If you need to more than an 8-day unilateral, they have every right to say, no, thanks, goodbye, unless you want to pony up more money. So
And you
understand the
refund.
risk that's involved in this. Because I've had that where somebody decided they found a better house, so they wanted to get out of this house because they didn't feel the karma on it. And I'm like, awesome, so that's 6% plus your earnest money. Like, I can't afford that. I'm like, well, I guess you should buy the house because you agreed to.
Keep in mind too, like sellers that are also wanting to buy, but they're scared to pull the trigger. Telling them to get a pod versus hiring movers makes the whole process less stressful because they park it in their driveway, they load it up, have the movers come and move the heavy things at the end, and then they ship it off to wherever it needs to go, either to climate control, and I've had a lot of my clients that use pods have a much better experience. They ship it off to climate control, and if we got to go into an Airbnb for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, then that stuff is there. They don't have to move it twice. They don't have to stress about the movers holding onto their stuff, and then they call and say, okay, we're closing on our new house in 30 days. This is the day I want it dropped off in my new driveway. So that helps them.
The four-grand option money that you have to keep this thing open, that was non-refundable because they use it towards the eventual closing.
No, we made it non-refundable,
But was it towards the purchase price or was it an additional fee?
additional.
So they paid $4,000 more for the house.
They wired it to my seller's account.
No, I get how
For us
options
to
work,
sign
but
the
the price
extension.
went up as a result of this.
Also,
It doesn't-
refund that.
Cost more, no, it was option money, so it literally went to my seller
What
discount
did you go
too.
towards the first?
Right, because you can use option money towards the $400,000
Right.
offer or $404,000,
Right,
right?
right.
So that's what I'm.
Oh, no, it's
So they paid
$4,000.
$404,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Because they wanted the house back. We had a lot of offers. So it was a ranch in Woodstock.
Our ranch in Woodstock, yeah. With walking distance to downtown?
No.
Oh, okay, all right. I was like.
I did have a
you got-
convention ranch in Woodstock on 2 acres.
Yeah.
They just plug that one in. That was so smooth.
What's the price? One
500.
thing that I will tell y'all, piggybacking on
Yes.
what Meagen said.
Arnoldville and North Arnoldville, 0188. 2 acres on a cul-de-sac.
Go ahead,
One
Josh.
thing I'll tell y'all with, just talking about what Meagen was saying about negotiations, don't play the game of, oh, y'all taking offers until 6 o'clock on Sunday, great, we got plenty of time to send one in. Send it in, immediately put the deadline on it that day, call the agent and say, hey, I just sent you an offer, it ends tonight at 8 o'clock, talk to your people, let's get it done. The last 2 listings that we've had, our plan was to put them on Thursday, make a decision Sunday, inform people on Monday. Both of them were off the market by noon on Friday.
Oh, yeah.
Because the
That keeps
buyer's agent said, hey, we got a great deal, we're over, our numbers are good, no, our timelines are good, but we got a deadline at 8 o'clock tonight, so let's get it done.
Yeah, if you put a deadline out there and then you change it, you let the agents that shows how to know, so you have good rapport with people. Because I've been burned pretty bad and I remember these people.
What, yeah, what other tidbit like that would any of you offer as we're wrapping up here to finish up? What would you say in this market that you're gonna do a little different going forward?
Communicate with the other agent heavily.
It should be done anyway. Going back to finding out reason why, making sure because your buyer, they're the ones bringing all this money, making this huge commitment, marrying the house, right? So you want to make sure that they are fully in.
Be nice.
Yeah, both sides. Yeah.
Don't slack on preparing your buyers just because you think you have a leg up. So really get them prepared and set those expectations and go do the things you've done over the last few years because you're still going to be ahead. We're still getting, we still are getting strong offers on some of our listings.
And more buyers are going to jump in the market. Once they understand and realize what's going on, you're going to see more buyers. Because there's more listings and it's going to be a more balanced market. Because the buyers kind of went away there for a while. They got tired.
Talking
See?
positive too, out there in all your conversations, when I first got into this business, I had so many people that came to me and said, well, we chose you because you talk so positive about the market and your business. And it seems like everybody else, every other real estate agent I talk to, their market's down, but yours seems to be up. And I'm like, yeah. And I was freaking out on the inside and not sleeping. But they did not know that. And they came, and it just, the laws of attraction just come to you based on what you put out there. So just
If
people
you
are talking.
are enthusiastic,
You will be enthusiastic.
It's close to that.
And you don't have to say, if you're not selling anything, you can still say, we are selling. We are selling. So who's we? They don't know who we is. We are selling so many. We are doing so good. Like, oh my gosh, we're not really feeling the market shift. It's been really good. Like our numbers are up. They don't know who you're talking about. Even if you haven't sold a house in 3 months, who cares?
market shares up.
Well, you get to use the
Confidence.
numbers of the office.
Well, the company, 1 out of 4 houses that sold in the United States out of KWC.
Confidence sells.
In the metro market.
All right.
Well, thank you to our panel so much.